I hate that question. The only person in my life who hates that question more than I do is my wife. I hate that question, which isn't fair because it's a normal question. But I'm not a normal person. The story I want to tell you today is about luck and magic. This photograph was taken in 1969. I was 6 years old. I'm all the way to your right in the front row. I was in a tiny Catholic high school in Montreal, Quebec. I'm not Catholic. And there are three incredibly lucky things about this photo. One is the sheer accident that I have it at all. I don't even know who took the picture. The second is that all the way to the left in the front row is a little girl named Moira Dossiter, who is my wife. And when we first met and were having our first connecting the dots kind of conversation, I pegged that she had been in Montreal after I left when she went to university, but that she'd been there before when she was in school. She'd moved away right after this year. And my mother had stuck that photograph in a photo album she gave me for my 21st birthday. And as I connected this dot, I said, stay right here. I went and got the photo album, and I opened it to the page, and I said, are you in this photo? And she saw herself, and that was it. And 45 years later, this is the magic that came from all that luck. Now, to continue the string of luck, Moira introduced me to this guy, one of my best friends, Robin Uchida. Robin and I ended up starting a company together a couple of years after we met called Torch. And in another completely unlikely lucky event, Robin stumbled on the website of a company called Management Innovation Group. And one of the partners of that company, which sounded a lot like the company we were trying to start, was this guy, Victor Lombardi. And on his bio page, he said, I'm in New York, and if you're ever in the city, hit me up and I'll make you a cup of coffee. So I did, and by the end of our conversation, he was telling me about this thing that he and this guy, Jess McMullen, were organizing in another month out in Monterey, California, called Overlap. It was an invite-only gathering of 50 people who were going to come together to talk about this overlap, primarily, the overlap between design and business. This is from a slide from Roger Martin, and between two different kinds of thinking. But the map is not always the territory, and though that was an important conversation to us all, and one that we had in a variety of ways that weekend, something else happened that weekend, and it happened all weekend, and this is what it looked like. And what I realized was that what was happening over the weekend, it was like one of those first conversations you have with somebody you're falling in love with, where time disappears and you're just fully immersed in the moment. And what I realized was that as much as what we had come there to talk about, what we had been doing that weekend was loving each other. And so this is the final go-round on our last day. We were going around the circle and sort of debriefing about the weekend. And it got to me and I said, I only know one thing. This has to happen again. And I volunteer to make it happen again. And what the hell was I thinking? Because trying to reproduce something magical seems impossible. And of course, I routinely volunteer to do these kinds of things and then go, oh shit. Now, about the same time, something called Barcamp was invented, and Barcamp is a framework for creating unconferences. And it's become an incredibly successful framework. People use it all the time to make all kinds of unconferences, and that's sort of what Overlap was called at the beginning. But in fact, Overlap isn't an unconference, and it's certainly not a camp. What I came to realize as I engineered the second one, designing it with my friend Robin, is that Overlap's a magic trick. And it has three essential elements. The territory. We go somewhere together for a weekend, once a year, 50 of us. And once we're there, we make a circle, and we stay in that circle for the entire weekend. We spend the entire weekend together, sharing with each other, teaching each other. And at some point over the weekend, through no explicit or ritualized act, everyone there becomes initiated, which is to say, they come to belong to something over that weekend. My friend Michael and I spent a weekend hanging around with Ricky Jay and a bunch of the people that he involves in creating magic. And the most amazing thing about that weekend was coming away with the knowledge that what magic is creating wonder. Magicians talk about tricks as effects. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the effects of overlap. Very small sampling, but this is our friend Shell. Shell was at the first overlap with me. We have had 10 just this past year, so we have a similar coincident anniversary with BIF. Shell was in advertising for many years, but 2 years ago, she quit her job, very successful job in New York, sold everything she owned, and moved to Detroit to start a hotel that's about story. She creates magic, inspiring us and what we can become. One year, I was at Overlap in a terrible, terrible depression, having crashed to earth in my first startup. And Bastian, who I had met only once before, barely knew him, saw that I was in trouble and reached out to me like a brother and spent the entire weekend trying to convince me to come out surfing with him, which I felt absolutely no energy to do. And all the way to the end, he insisted, and finally, at the end of that weekend, managed to get me and a few other people out in the water for 2 hours, and again, made this magical reconnection with people, purpose, and the world. These two people, Thorne and Roy, created some magic a couple of years ago when we all met in Santa Fe. Thorne is a magic worker, which is another way of saying that she's a spiritual teacher who wouldn't be afraid to call herself a witch. Roy is a career Army soldier. And the conversation they both had about their values and their faith was absolutely revelatory. A magic that convinced us all there that weekend that the overlap that we have created is not between this or that idea, but it's about the overlap of worlds and the connection of worlds. What we do together is take risks and make risks, emboldening each other to change ourselves, change each other, and change the people in our lives as we leave. So when my friend Matthew asked me a couple of weeks ago at lunch, or said to me a couple of weeks ago at lunch, you know, I was talking to some people about you the other day, and they said, you know, yeah, you know him, right? What does he do? I said, I know what to tell them. Next time anyone asks you that question about me, tell them that my job is to make other people unhappy. And what I mean by unhappiness is something different from depression. Depression paralyzes us and makes us incapable of action. And it's not anger. Anger is too bright a fuel to sustain us. I want people to stay unhappy and unsatisfied with the present so that they can't help themselves but change it. I read a novel by Lev Grossman a couple of years ago, and this is part of what guided me to this concept of unhappiness. A professor at a school of magic is talking to his graduates and offering them this parting wisdom. He says, what is it you think that makes you magicians? Is it because you're intelligent? Is it because you're kind and good? Is it because you're special? Maybe. Who knows? But I'll tell you something. I think you're magicians because you're unhappy. A magician is strong because he feels pain. He feels the difference between what the world can be and what it is and what he would make of it. A magician is strong because he hurts more than others. His wound is his strength. Most people carry that pain around their whole lives until the pain either kills them or they kill it. But you've learned to do something different. To use the pain, to burn it as fuel for light and warmth. That's the look of unhappiness. That's the work I'm proud to do. Overlap is unfinished, but I've taken 3 really important things away from it that I want to share with you. One is that luck scales. You've had incredible luck to be here. Don't squander it. Magic transforms. Leave here and find a way to make of the luck you've had something magical. And not all of us who wander are lost. Thank you.